All right, guys, welcome back into another post-game discussion for Chapter 11, 52 of One Piece. So, how this works, in case you're new here, is that we like to go through the comment section from the chapter review videos to see what everybody's talking about. We're going to check out the theories. We're going to check out the opinions, the topics, all that good stuff. So, without further ado, let's get into it and see what you guys cooked up this week. So, I do like to sort this from top to bottom. So let's see what we got here first. The most liked comment says this: Oda making fun of Sanji about Conqueror's Haki means he's going to get it. It happened with him wanting a bounty. Happened with him wanting invisibility. Happened with him being a prince. Now it's happening with Conk. Also, if Gaban said Sanji doesn't have Conqueror's Haki in the off-screen convo, then Sanji would have hit the ass-up face on the floor crying pose. And as far as what Gaban said, I saw a theory that he told Sanji that his Germa body is suppressing his Conqueror's Haki, or that his Germa side and his human side are not balanced, his eyebrows switching, which is holding him back from unlocking it. Funny enough, I agree. When it comes to Sanji and Conqueror's Haki, I think he's going to get it. You know, I didn't even think about this right here, like Oda making fun of it and then it happens. I didn't even think about that. But I've always been a believer in Conqueror's Haki Sanji. But as far as his Germa body playing a role in him having Conqueror's Haki, I think that is going to be the case. I do not think that the Germa body is suppressing his Conqueror's Haki, but I think his Germa body is making it to where he's perfect for Conqueror's Haki. Like for Zoro, right? Scopper said that Zoro's body has adjusted to it. Well, I think Sanji's body has always been adjusted to it. Not because of Sanji, by any means. I think it's because of what Judge did to him at birth. I think that's what Sanji has to give credit to, and that could be, you know, a little pain point, right? Like back in Wano, when Sanji first unlocked his exoskeleton, when the Germa DNA was flooding his body, he was pretty annoyed. You know, he's like, now I'm like those guys. I think this is going to set Sanji up to be the soldier of science that Judge made him out to be. And then, of course, thanks to Sanji's own willpower, his Conqueror's Haki, boom, it's going to make that even more powerful. Or should I say the Germa body will make his Conqueror's Haki even more powerful. And then it's going to be a whole thing of Sanji saying, oh, like, do I thank my dad? Do I hate my dad? I hate that it's even related to those guys. Like, I think that's going to be the whole play here. And I do agree, you know, if Scopper said that Sanji did not have Conqueror's Haki, or if it was a simple yes or no, Sanji's reaction would be very different. So whatever Scopper told Sanji, it's definitely more complex than just a yes, you have Conqueror's Haki, or no, you don't. I think the Germa body is playing a role when it comes to all of this. And like I said in the review video, but if a lady gets hurt here in Elbaf in front of Sanji and he switches to his Germa side, that is when Conqueror's Haki is going to get unleashed. Right? I think when he switches personalities, he's going to go ballistic. I've seen people saying, oh, Sanji doesn't have the personality of a conqueror. But brother, have you seen Vinsmoke Germa Sanji? Like when he was fighting S Shark back in Egghead, his demeanor changed. His dialogue changed. He said that thou shalt not hurt any woman in front of him or else you will be executed. Like brother, that is some kingly talk right there. Of course, I paraphrased it because it's been a while. But, you know, if you go back to the S-Shark chapter, he does talk and refer to himself as a king. The next comment says, I feel like the only reason people don't want it to be Conqueror's Haki is because they all want the Strats to get a piece of the action. But remember, Kaido said that Haki transcends everything, so it makes sense that bypassing the Gorosei-Holy Knights regen would come from Conqueror's Haki. And let's not forget what went down in Egghead. It wasn't some new power system that blasted the Gorosei. That was simply Joy Boy's Conqueror's Blast. And yes, you pretty much worded why I didn't want Conqueror's Haki to be the answer right here, right? I wanted the Straw Hats to get a piece of the action, but if Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji get the action and the rest don't, I think I can live with that. Especially if some of the other Straw Hats get workarounds, right? I feel like the Straw Hats have always found some sort of workaround to these abilities. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's like a second route we could go. Like, yes, you need Conqueror's Haki. That is the easiest way to defeat them. But maybe there's a second option. Maybe if Luffy beats Emu, or maybe if Luffy severs that connection, then the regeneration will go away, and then the other Straw Hats can get a piece of that action. Or maybe there's another way to break the black magic in general, right? Black magic usually has a counter. So I think there's still a lot of ways we could work around this. But the answer being Conqueror's Haki, like I said, I've grown more and more fond of it as time has gone on, right? Ever since this week has passed, I'm like, you know what? Conqueror's Haki isn't that bad, right? If just Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji end up fighting the Holy Knights, W, because that would mean we could bring in other Conqueror Haki users into the equation. I would love it if Yamato joined, for example. Yamato joins us in the final war, and boom, she fights a Holy Knight. Boa Hancock, another one, boom, joins Luffy because she loves Luffy and fights a Holy Knight. Doflamingo, which is a really weird one, but he doesn't like the Holy Knights, right? He doesn't like the world government. I think there's so many conquerors that could come in that could make this solution feel amazing. And hell, people don't like it, right? But Big Mom and Kaido, if they ever come back, if they are ever confirmed to be alive, I will start talking about the theory that they could also fight some Holy Knights, or maybe even the Gorosei. That'd be sick. I mean, who would not want Kaido to become a Kenpachi type of character? Well, actually, I could see people not liking that, but come on, dude. Kenpachi out of Bleach? Ooh, yeah, that's Kaido. Come on, let's be real for a minute. This one says, what Shanks said, I just wanted to be a carefree pirate with Buggy. I think every man felt the loss of his own childhood innocence, burdened by righteous responsibility, sigh. And then he goes on and he says, it's pronounced Shadhinov. Wait, what? Oh, his name. Okay. I like the confidence. Look at that, dude. He's like, yeah, my comments being read. I'm gonna drop my pronunciation right here. That's nuts. Wow, does this guy have Conqueror's Haki? Holy crap. So yeah, I completely agree. Shanks is a better man than me. I mean, I feel like if I was a kid and somebody said, hey, you want to go sailing with Buggy? No, you can't do that. You're the child of destiny. You have to fulfill this prophecy. I'd be like, what? What do you mean I can't hang out with Buggy anymore? Like, that's just sad, man. That's just so sad. I can already see people doing edits of Buggy and Shanks, like, what if they actually joined a crew together? What if they started a crew? What if they did hang out? How would Buggy be different? How would Shanks be different? Like, my God. And it would get even worse if Shanks dies. Imagine Shanks dies and Buggy's there. And Shanks is like, Buggy, we should have sailed together. We should have done something. Or maybe Buggy's like, oh, Shanks, I'm so sorry. You know what? Even though you didn't want to go after the One Piece, I should have stayed with you anyways. Like, I could see that just being so freaking tragic, man. Which I gotta say, hopefully, before the series ends, or at least in the final war, we get a Buggy and Shanks team up. I know. Buggy is nowhere near the level of Shanks right now, but that doesn't matter, right? You know, back in the day when they were fighting Blackbeard together, back when Roger was fighting Whitebeard's crew every other Sunday, they came up with some crazy combination attacks. And I want to see it. I want to see it, man. I'm a fanboy at heart. I want to see all these crazy matchups, all these crazy team-ups. That's just how I am. This one says, Oda is really excited to show the audience Loki's strength, and he's just channeling that through Luffy. I have a prediction for when they make it to the surface. Loki lands an impressive attack showing off his strength and Devil Fruit. We'll get a few reaction shots like, is that Loki? That guy's strong, or stuff like that. The children will hear this and their nightmares will slowly deform and turn into various botched drawings of Loki. We will then see a shot of Loki standing proudly with speech bubbles showing Elbaf's fear of him. He'll be surrounded by botched Loki drawings, leading to become the best entrance in a fight in One Piece. That's not bad. I didn't ever consider that, but you're right. The kids are actively creating new nightmare monsters, right? They saw Emu, they fell asleep, and boom, little emu devil things are starting to pop out of the ground. So if they see Loki, if they see this nightmarish power in the Sun Realm, maybe we will see botched versions of Loki. Granted, we already have botched versions of Loki already as nightmare monsters, right? Because one kid did say they were afraid of Loki, and then we saw it in the giant double spread like 10 chapters ago. But we could see even more of them. Or hell, if Luffy and Loki work together, Imagine that, right? We'll have a lot of Luffy and Lokis jumping around in the sky, which as it stands right now, I can't tell if that would be better or worse because they'd be under Killingham's control. But maybe, maybe Loki flips the script and he shows that he's fighting for Elbaf. He shows up as a good guy, as a hero, and then Killingham's nightmare monsters become dream hero monsters. But I don't know. It's a devil fruit power. So because of that, I can't really see them betraying Killingham. But maybe Luffy liberates the nightmares, or maybe Luffy liberates the kids, or maybe that's Usopp's job, right? Usopp versus all the nightmare monsters. I feel like people have been talking about that for a while. I mean, Usopp definitely is the most fearful character in Elbaf, so maybe he'll have something to do with those there. Knowing those two, Scopper probably just told Sanji something like, you don't need conquerors, you have the power of love. So a lot of people have been talking about the power of love, and I am not one to underestimate the power of love, but I do wonder what that means. In terms of Haki, how does love actually factor into it, right? Like I said, I like this train, but I do want to see if this actually has some tangibility to it, right? Like if Sanji actually does fight a Holy Knight, will the power of love actually equate to Conqueror's Haki? Like, will that actually work? I think that's kind of where I'm at right now. So until we learn more about the power of love, I'm gonna say he needs Conqueror's Haki, right? Maybe he's the conqueror of love, the conqueror of hearts. But yeah, I don't know. This one says, Luffy, sitting to pay attention to someone talk about their life is the craziest thing to happen in this chapter. Yes, but I think there's an explanation to it. The explanation is simply the fact that Luffy, like the comment up here said, right? It's simply the fact that Luffy wants to see Loki fight. In this chapter, that is what Luffy said. Luffy wants to release Loki from the cuffs so that he can see what this guy's all about. So that is why I think Luffy is paying attention to the flashback. It's because whatever comes out of it, that is going to determine whether or not Hardin allows them to let Loki go. So Luffy's probably waiting on bated breath like, oh, please, Hardin, let him free. I want to see his devil fruit. I want to see his Haki. So yeah, I think that's the only reason. If it was purely political, like in Fishman Island, I think Luffy would definitely end up falling asleep. Luffy here would be like, hey, Zoro, Sanji, wait up. I want to go to the Sun Realm too. Please take me with you. But yeah, because there is going to be a strong character waiting at the end of this flashback, Luffy is all ears. This one says, love being here, man, and love the rants. Thank you for the videos. I appreciate it, man. Thank you guys for being here as well. If you're watching this video or the previous one, I appreciate it. The scene where King Harald is stabbed, there is fog-mist below that appears to be the Abyss Circle. Is there? Wait a minute. I did not see that. Okay, so I pulled up the chapter right now, and I do see it. There is a weird cloud of mist below King Harald. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I guess at first, right, at first glance, just going through the chapter, it's like, oh, like King Harald's moving really quick, or the soldiers are moving quick. But you're right, that could be the Abyss Circle. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but I see it, and it does look really odd. Yeah, maybe. Oh, here's a good one. Maybe the soldiers didn't think that they were going to kill King Harald. Maybe they were like, hey guys, like there's a demon circle here. A demon's gonna pop out. Quick, get ready to kill it. And then, boom, King Harald spawns, and it's not a demon, but they still go into stab by accident. That could be interesting. Nah, brother, that's a really good observation. Predictions for next chapter. Emu will use a new ability and then complain how Gunko's body limits his power. I think so too. I think this is 100% gonna happen. I mean, brother, we got the final villain, potentially the final villain, right? People still think Blackbeard will be that guy, but we have potentially the final villain here in Elbaf. There's no way we're gonna see their 100% off rip. Like, think back to Kaido, right? I think Kaido's a really good example. When Kaido first fought Luffy at the beginning of Wano, he didn't go into his hybrid form, He didn't whip out crazy Conqueror's coding. No. He was just base level. He hit Luffy, and that's pretty much it. Go back to any arc where Luffy loses in the beginning, the villain typically doesn't whip out their 100% power right away. So I think Emu will be the same. I think Emu will be limited because of Gunko's body, maybe even because of Gunko's personality. Right? Who's to say that Gunko isn't inside, trying to kick Emu out, trying to get back control of the wheel. But that being said, though, I don't think that's going to happen next chapter. I am pretty confident that Oda will stick and stay with this flashback. I think that's going to be the case. I mean, just looking back at it, right? The last half of 1152, it was all flashback, you know? So I think we're just going to roll on with that. And we probably won't see the Straw Hats for, I would say, the next 3 to 5 weeks. Yeah, if I had to put a limit on it, I'd say 3 to 5 chapters is how long the flashback will last. Harden said, hey, Loki explained it in 3 minutes. So that's kind of funny because, you know, obviously the flashback's going to go on for months, but we'll see, we'll see. This one says, Harald was clearly set up. That's why Shanks said they couldn't talk freely, and he wanted to talk to him again before it's, quote, too late. Both knew something was coming. I bet it wasn't even Harald that called Jarl and Loki to the castle, but Emu dashed the God Knights through Harald to get rid of them. That Harald silhouette was already possessed, dash reversed, or programmed when they stabbed him. And also, someone closed the door and trapped them all in, possibly Emu or another God Knight. And then the possessed Harald went for the chest. The real Harald wouldn't make a comment about finding the sacred chest of Elbaf. I think in this moment, Jarl was already out and Loki intervenes. Loki eats the fruit and fights dash kills Harald, takes the blame to keep Harald's legacy clean and flees. Maybe Harald came to his senses for a second during the fight, telling Loki and or the others to take him out. Thus, the mistake dash blunder Emu mentioned. That's not bad. When it comes to Harald being set up by Emu dash the God Knights, I don't know. You know, like when they talk about it being a blunder, it sounds like Harald made a mistake in their eyes. It really seemed like they thought Harald was on their side until the very end. So Harald coming back and saying, hey, Loki, please kill me, you know, and this being a setup by the Holy Knights and they were witnessing the whole thing, I don't think that's the case. You know, I have a more oddball theory, and that is that maybe there was a single Holy Knight that had it out for King Harald. I think there might have been like a rogue agent that was trying to set Harald up. It might not be that Emu or the Holy Knights had a part to play in this. It could just be one guy, just a character that we have not met yet. Obviously, that's like a shot in the dark, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. Because if Harald did try to tell Loki and the soldiers to kill him, and if he was trying to thwart the WG's plans and they knew about it, then why would they call it a blunder? That'd be more like a betrayal, right? And then, of course, Shamrock would not want to visit this guy's grave because he's betraying them. So I do think that whatever is happening with Harald, the world government genuinely thought that he was on their side until his dying breath. But that's just me. Yeah, it's tough. And then Loki eating the fruit, I'm cool with that. But now it brings back into question, what is the fruit, right? What is the legendary fruit of Elbaf? Personally, I thought it was the Gumma Gumma no Mi. That is still where my heart's at. But I am open to it being a different fruit. You know, I do think Loki has something, and that is why they chained him up in Sea Stone. But what? You know, what the hell was in that basement, man? Sigh, with this flashback, we find out that Gabon was not the old friend discovered in Elbaf. Here, we see that Shanks knew very well that Gabon and Loki were alive in Elbaf. Could it be Mosa? Mosa's a fun answer. Yeah, I do like the Mosa route, but I think the easiest answer at this point would be Dorian Broggie. Because they were mentioned in this chapter, right? Shanks talked about visiting Dorian Broggie back when he was with the Roger Pirates, which was what, a decade? I guess at this point, like 20 plus years ago, right? So maybe they are who he was talking about because he went back to Little Garden recently and they were no longer there. You know, they were having their 100-year-long duel there, but Shanks shows up and they're just missing. They're MIA. You know, they've been there for so long and they're gone now. And that's because they came back home to Elbaf. And then Shanks ran into him and he was like, oh, like, I thought you guys were dead. You know, like, I thought you guys just killed each other. I thought you know, got killed by somebody else. You know, you weren't on your island. I think that could be it. I think that's the easiest solution. But the fun answer, I do think, is Mosa. But right now, we have no clue what the heck is going on with Mosa, right? I mean, and if this is the case, then we're saying that Mosa is here on this island. And if that's true, man, who would it be? Are they up in the heaven world? Are they the owl? Are they Jarl? Is it Ange? You know, I've seen so many theories about Mosa. So if they're here in Elbaf, man, who could it be? I don't think there's any time dilation. I think Scopper just got used to the way that the giants perceive time living around them all this time. So for a giant, if it's been 3 human years, that would feel more like 3 or 4. I don't think time moves faster or slower. I think perception is just different because of the way the giants age. I agree with you. I do think there is time dilation, but I do not think time moves faster or slower. I'm in the middle. Essentially, I think Elbaf simply messes with your perception of time, and that could be because the nights are longer. The day is longer. I think that's what it is. But time doesn't exactly move faster or slower. We're all aging the same, and that's why Scopper, he's aging, right? It's been a decade, he's getting older, he's getting more white hairs. Time isn't working faster or slower for him. I think it's at a normal pace. But I think the perception of time in Elbaf is what is different. Like I said, I think maybe they have like 36-hour days or maybe 48-hour days. And because they're in Elbaf, they just don't notice it. Right? Because they're just so used to like, oh, the sun is down, the day's over. But they don't realize, because they don't have like wristwatches, right? They don't realize that these days are longer than usual. I think that's what it is. And like you said, I think it's because of the way the giants age. That might be why they don't really notice it either. And then if you're a human living here, you also just don't notice it because it's just normal. It's interesting that Gabon mentioned Little Garden to Shanks. The link between Little Garden and Elbaf, besides Dorian Brogy, is Louis Arno. I can't wait to find out more about why people can't stay in Elbaf for too long. Yes, I think it's around the corner. I think that is definitely around the corner, and I think it could just be tied to this. Like, your perception of time is mixed up. If you stay there for too long, the outside world is going to move on without you because you think you're here for 1 day, but in reality, it's just, it's 3 days. That's where I'm at right now, but I am excited because what if we get a Louis Arno appearance in the King Harald flashback? Is that possible? Wait a minute. Do we have an age on Louis Arno? One Piece Louis Arno. Okay, let me look this up actually. I know that Noland was 400 years ago, but is there a date for Bragman? Okay, so I'm looking at the wiki right now, and there's no given date. So we don't know when it was written for sure. So that could mean that we could see Louis Arno. Like, we could see a young Louis Arno. We could see Kareah because she's so old. Mother Carmel. I think there's a lot of interesting characters we could meet in this King Harald flashback, man. We could even meet like former Holy Knights, former Gorosei members, right? Oh, dude. Ooh, we could meet Shanks' great-granddaddy, the father of Garling for Garland. Like, we could get really wacky since we're going that far back in time. Will that actually happen, though? I'm not too sure, right? I feel like that's a shot in the dark, but we will see, man. This one says, it's Harald's mustache and not his horns in the silhouette. I can see this. So in the review video, I talked exclusively about King Harald having a demonic transformation. And I forgot to mention the other avenue, and that is simply that what we see in that silhouette is simply his mustache and his armor. And funny enough, because I saw comments like this floating around, I ended up holding a poll on the channel asking, is this silhouette of Harald him in his demon form, or is it simply his mustache alongside his armor that is spiked and tipped? And believe it or not, look at the polls, man. As I'm recording right now, there are 4,100 votes, and 54% of people believe the King Harald that is silhouetted is indeed in a demon form. 54% right there, and 46% are saying that there is no demon transformation. It is simply his stash and his armor. I do think the fun answer is that King Harald is in a demon form right now, because that would perfectly tie in with Domi reversing what's happening here in Elbaf. Like, that would be so perfect if it all just lined up. Loki goes up to the Sun Realm, and then he says, oh, wait, I've seen this before, Straw Hat. Like, I think that'd be so perfect. But there is a reality where it's not a demon form, and it's simply Old Man Harald that has really deceiving points, right? His mustache is just angled out like this, and we're none the wiser. But the reason I bring up the poll is to just show that Oda is doing a really good job, right? You know, people think it's a really straightforward answer, but it's not, dude. The fan base is kind of divided with this one. And I do think that that right there is the makings of a good story, right? A good story makes it to where you're always questioning things that should be obvious, right? The mustache and the armor, things that should be obvious aren't, because there's just that many possibilities. I mean, hell, before this silhouette even popped up, people were already speculating that King Harald had a demon form. Right? The minute we saw Domi Reversi, the minute we saw claw marks in the throne room, people are already dropping those theories. So this silhouette kind of feeds into it. And it's funny because on one hand, it's like, oh, but Oda did not intend that. But I would argue that he is. You know, Oda loves creating these mysteries. Oda loves keeping people on their toes. Oda loves being in line with the fan base. I mean, hell, even in this chapter, Sanji's talking about Zoro and Jinbei stocks. Last chapter, Scopper was like, oh, I'm number 2. You know, like, I think Oda knows what he's doing when he drops something like this. And like I said, I want to believe that it is a demon form just because I think it would fit in really well with current Elbaf. But I do understand that it could just simply be his mustache and his armor. So this right here, they say, Sai sure knows when to drop hour-long videos at my shift about to start in the slowest part, so this is great for me. Oda is on a generational run, brother. No breaks. It's been back-to-back greatness, yes. I mean, dude, it is the final arc. I think since One Piece is going to end in the next 5 or so years, Oda's gonna let it rip. You know, all the ideas that Oda has ever had, any fun plot point Oda ever wanted to bring into the story, he's gonna do it here and now. You know, no holds bar is what this is. This comment says, okay, so if time moves about 3 times slower in Elbaf and giants are also now confirmed to be 3 times the lifespan of humans, does that mean that from an outsider's perspective, a giant that lives their whole life on Elbaf lives 9 times as long as humans? Interesting implications towards there being giants who could have been alive since the Void Century. Yeah, and that's the tough part. And that's why, you know, going back up to the comment up here about no time dilation, I think that time doesn't move slower. It's simply perception. I think that is the cleanest way to do it. Because if Oda does bring in the whole, oh, you know, Elbaf makes you age slower, then I think we start getting into hot water. Like with this comment, right? Like, oh, like, are there giants from the Void Century present here on Elbaf? And then even then, it's like, wait, how does this extend to giants who don't live on Elbaf? They also have 3 times the lifespan, but if that's the case, then would they live even longer if they were back in the homeland? Like, there's so many things about that, and it's tricky, right? It kind of reminds me of Toki. Toki had the Toki Toki no Mi. Wait, was that actually the name of her devil fruit? Did I just like pull that out of nowhere? I think it was the Toki Toki no Mi. Yes, it was. Toki had the Toki Toki no Mi that allowed her to jump forward in time. That power right there has the potential to break a lot of the story. But Oda kept it nice, sweet, simple, and then he killed Toki. So because of how dicey time can get if this was introduced, for now, I just want to say that perception is what gets messed with. Your perception of time gets effed up. But as far as like lifespan, I think that's going to stick to what we know. You know, giants live 3 times longer, and that's that. You know, for example, Scopper, right? Because Scopper's in Elbaf, I do not think he's going to live longer than usual. But we'll see, right? There's not a lot of humans we can really pull from that lived here in Elbaf, so that's a tough one. All right, so this comment says, Sister Carmel was 34 at the time, 2 years older than Kareah, and had been in the trafficking business for about 4 years. Brother, you did the work for me. Thank you, yes. See, this solidifies it right here. Because of the flashback being so long ago in the past, I do genuinely believe we're going to see Carmel and Kareah. Dude, prime Kareah, I'm down for it. Oh, man. I mean, the thing is that I feel like I've talked about this last time we did one of these comment videos, but there have been theories I've seen that said that Scopper and Kareah are related. And if Kareah's here in Elbaf, man, I think that's going to be another point on the graph that could say that, yeah, they are related, right? That's another parallel right there. But yeah, I love that. So yeah, prime Carmel, prime Kareah. I'm begging you, Oda, please bring him in, brother. This one says, Sanji is hinted at unlocking Conqueror's Haki. Loki was kind of implied to have it already, and the rest of the strats are officially useless when it comes to Emu and the Holy Knights since they don't have cock. We're gonna need a group of cock users now. I agree. I do think we will need a group of Conqueror Haki users eventually, but I do not think we need them now. Because right now, right, we have Luffy, we have Zoro, we have maybe Sanji, and then we have Loki and Scopper. And maybe Usopp if you want to go that route, right? So I think because we have such a small number of Conqueror Haki users on this island, that is a prime reason why Oda also limited the number of Holy Knights available. The ones that came here to Elbaf, right? At first we had 4 with Shamrock, and now we have 3. I believe that the reason why there's only 3 Holy Knights on this island is simply because we do not have a vast pool of Conqueror's Haki users at our disposal right now. But once we hit the final war, that is when I think things will change, and we will need that group of Conqueror Haki users on the front lines. And I'm gonna say it right here, man. You know, if we wanted one more character with Conqueror's Haki to show up on this island, Kid was last seen off the coast of Elbaf. Brother, if he does not show up here and do something with that cock, I don't know what to say. You know, Kid is one of those characters that has been confirmed to have Conqueror's Haki, but he's never shown it. You know, Sengoku, same boat. Sengoku has Conqueror's Haki, never shown it. But for Sengoku, it makes sense. We've only seen him fight a Marineford. For Kid? Brother, he had a whole arc to display Conqueror's Haki. He hasn't done it. Maybe, because Oda is waiting for Elbaf. You know, maybe, Scopper will even drop another one-liner like he did for Zoro. You know, he's going to look at Kid and say, Kid, your body, it cannot control your Conqueror's Haki. You just got too much Conqueror's Haki, man. That is like some Kid fan fiction, but hey, I mean, something's going on with Kid, brother. Something. I can't focus with that Claire obscure music. It's playing so good, yeah. I love the Claire OST. What if Scopper said to Sanji something along the lines of him needing to remember and strive towards his dream to unlock it? Because isn't having a near unachievable dream one of the main components of having Conqueror's Haki? Yes and no. They simply said, well, they, as in Rayleigh, he said you need to have kingly ambitions, but even that is very vague, right? Because look at Big Mom. Big Mom has Conqueror's Haki, and before Wano happened, her main goal was to bring all the races to a table, right? She was over here sleeping with everybody so that she could have one big family. That was her kingly ambition. And then you could go over to another character, right? Go to Don Chinjiao. His kingly ambition was to run the Hapasui Navy and to find treasure in the Antarctic. And then, of course, there's Katakuri, and he doesn't really have any kingly ambitions. Like, he wants to protect his family, and people are saying, oh, that's his kingly ambition. And that's fine, but it's like, you know, I think kingly ambition can mean so much. So Sanji wanting to achieve the All Blue, something that nobody's ever found before, possibly, like, I think that should unlock it, but we'll see. It could be, like, tied to your desire to find it, or it could just be something you're born with, or something that fits your personality, which is why I go back to his Jeremicide, because his Jeremicide definitely has that personality. But yeah, it's tough. You know, Rayleigh said it has to do with your ambition. And then on the other hand, we had Granny Neon who said you're simply born with it. So I think it's a little bit of both. I still think the requirements for Conqueror's Haki is very wishy-washy. And I think that's on purpose. I think when it comes to Conqueror's Haki, Oda left it kind of ambiguous so that he could add more to it later. So we'll see what happens with that one. This one also loves the Claire Expedition soundtrack. Phenomenal game. It's a 10 out of 10, man. Game of the year for me. This one says, oh, $2 super chat. Thank you, brother. Imagine the same Holy Knight that took the fruit is the same one that kidnapped Ginny. Their trope could be some type of collectors of what they're interested in. That would be nice. You know, when it comes to Ginny, I've kind of been on the boat that it was either Garling or Shamrock who took Ginny. Just because of that one SBS where Bonnie, when gender bent, looked a little bit like Shanks. So that is why I lean towards the Figarlands. But if it's a brand new Holy Knight, and if they are connected to Ginny, that'd be cool. You know, that'd be a great way to tie in both of those arcs. And hell, that could even open the door for that Holy Knight to come here to Elbaf. And imagine Bonnie, Kuma, Lilith, running into that person. That would be crazy. The reason I put Lilith in there is because Lilith and Vegapunk saw Kuma's memory bubble, so that's why I included them. But yeah, I would love a Bonnie reunion with her real dad. That would be crazy, bro. Imagine the slander they could drop on Kuma. Like, oh, Bonnie, get away from that fake father of yours. Come back to the Holy Land. I heard you have your powers unlocked now. Like, ooh, yeah. I need that, man. I need that. This one says, Sanji kicking Kizaru's laser and Kuma resisting Vegapunk's brain shutdown on him partially was called the power of love. What if this is just another way of using COC? Gaban is the emissary of love, and Kuma was also a king once. Hey, if we're going with the titles, I mean, don't forget, Sanji is technically a prince, right? He's the prince of the Vinsmoke, so yeah, I could see it. I think this does give more weight to the power of love. If it's just another subsection of Conqueror's Haki, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that. All right, so now for the last comment, they say, Sai, I think the spoilers were just wrong, and those inclined you to see something that isn't there. The horn on Harald is very clearly his mustache, and the sharp points are from his cloak that we can see in the painting of him. I agree. Like I said, I can see both sides. I can see why people think it's a demon. I can see why people think it is simply a mustache and his cloak, right? Like I said, I think it's odd either way, though, that Oda decided to silhouette Harald in that moment. You know, even if he doesn't have a demon transformation, I do still think something is off about Harald. Because if not, then why would they silhouette him, right? Especially when we get the King Harald reveal in this chapter. You know, we see him in his younger years. So I think it's odd to silhouette the older version right here and now. So I think something is happening somehow, some way. But as far as the spoilers being wrong, yeah. You know, that is simply one guy's interpretation. Did it create like a mandala effect where now, like whenever we look at Harald, we think it's a demon? Yeah, I think that happened too. But it's taken over to such a grand extent that it goes back to the poll where, because of the spoilers or because of people actually seeing it for themselves, right? Which, you know, I don't know how many viewers here actually read spoilers versus people who don't, but on this channel, on that poll, 54% do still think that it's a demon. So it's tough. It's tough. But yeah, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, if we were to go back in time and if I were to never read the spoilers, would I still think it's a demonic transformation? I don't know. That's a tough one. Because I think I would go towards the mustache first. But like I said, that's been a theory ever since we saw Domi Reversi, ever since we saw the throne room. So I don't even know, right? I think it's one of those things where, like, because the theory exists, we tend to just kind of lean towards it until proven otherwise. But yeah, I'm pretty 50-50 on it. Like I said, I still think the demon route is the fun answer. But we'll see what happens. So, I'm gonna get one more in here. I got one more in me, guys. They say Loki has been known to be a shapeshifter in fiction. His devil fruit could possibly have something to do with that. And he'd be able to fit on the Sunny. You know, funny enough, now that you say that, I can kind of see it. And, you know, we like to talk about Straw Hat versus Blackbeard matchups, right? Blackbeard does have a giant on his crew who can change sizes. San Juan Wolf ate the big no mi. I think it has a better name in Japanese, but you know, it's the big no mi. He can get bigger. I assume he can get smaller. I don't know if it goes in reverse, but either way, if Loki can make himself smaller to fit on the ship, he would be the perfect opponent for San Juan Wolf, who could only make himself bigger. Like, I think that would just line up so perfectly, actually, that if Loki does have a shape-shifting devil fruit, I do want him on the crew. I think that right there, this would make me flip. Because right now, I don't think he's going to join. If he does join, like I said, I think he will join Harden's crew, and Harden is underneath Luffy. So I think that's how Loki's going to make his way in there. But if he does shapeshift, if he can get smaller, then I'll believe it. You know, Loki for Nakama. Until then, though, I will be a part of the Yamato Club till I die. Oh, hold up a minute. Actually, wait. I'm going to go back for one more comment. I feel like we didn't get enough Shanks comments in here, you know? This is like a Shanks chapter. Didn't get a lot of Shanks comments, so I'm going to get this one. It caught my eye. Oda is cooking up Shanks. Dude is connected to everything and everyone. When the director of film Red, who knows about the ending of One Piece, said that Shanks is a character who's important as Luffy wasn't lying, dude will play the biggest role in the final war. Can't wait for the F'Garland family lore because they seem like they are all the royalist of the royal celestial dragon families. Yeah, you know, I just wanted to talk about Shanks for a minute because, like, dude, I still want to just find out what makes Shanks the child of prophecy, right? What makes him the destined one? Like, whatever Roger saw at Laughtail, whatever Joy Boy left there, that is how they found out. Or it was just through the poneglyphs, right? Does it have to do with the F'Garland blood? Like, is that one of the primary families that matters in the world? Like, back when the WG was created? Is Shanks potentially a mixed blood? Right? Because we don't know who Shanks' mom is, right? We've never heard about Garling's wife. So there is a chance that his mom is a member of the D-Clan, and Shanks is like the perfect half and half creation. Like, oh, he's part Celestial, he's also part D. Like, that would be crazy. I do want to know what is going on with Shanks. And of course, that Abyss Mark, brother. Why does he have it? I mean, of course, I'm calling it an Abyss Mark. We don't know what it is. But why does he have a WG tattoo at all? Right? Like, why was he playing both sides? And why would Emu knowingly let Shanks into the Holy Land? I always bring it up, but Doflamingo was turned down. He killed his dad. He wanted to go back to being a celestial dragon, but they said no. They said no. Shanks was more egregious. Shanks was raised by Roger. Shanks, you know, damn near went to Laughtail. Why did Emu let a potential rat back into the Holy Land? I mean, even right now, Shanks is pretty much betraying Emu by going after the One Piece. Why would Emu and the Gorosei risk having Shanks back? Is it because he's of a Garland? You know, did Garling really vouch for Shanks? Did Shamrock vouch for Shanks? Or does Emu also know that Shanks is the destined one? And that whatever side Shanks joins in the very end of the story, that will dictate how the rest of the events will unfold. I wonder. I freaking wonder, man. But now, for reals, we're ending the video here. As per usual, we started when the sun was down, the sun is up, and now it's time for me to go to bed. Thank you guys again for being here. You know, I appreciate all the comments as per usual. And make sure you guys check out my side channels. You know, I got a gaming channel on the side called Syvduck, and I also stream on Twitch every other night, late at night, at Syvduck as well. And also, I have an anime reaction channel called Somnus Reacts here on YouTube, so check me out. You know, I react to One Piece, Black Butler, Dandadan, Sakamoto Days, and anything else that just kind of catches my fancy. With that being said, though, y'all, my voice is kind of running out too. I'm gonna go to bed. Hopefully, you guys have a great rest of your day or night, and I'll catch you guys when the next chapter of One Piece releases. Take care till then, brother.